Hello everybody, this is Simon with Let's Play Mega Man Quantum. Today we're going to tackle one of the longest, if not the longest level in the game. It is also probably the hardest of the original 8, mostly due to the fact that it is actually pretty long, because there are just so many spots where you can fuck up and they're usually quite deadly in this level. It's mostly an issue for me though, because the checkpoints are as usual pretty generous and this game is not something I would consider brutal like Tertium was. This strange face platform is much like the one in Brightman in that we see it here, then once more in the level where it is going to be far easier than this setup, where you have to use the rush coil to get up, and then never again in the game. It is kind of strange and a little experimental and do not quite understand it, but it's not like it is a big issue, so whatever. What is a big issue, however, is Power Stone. It is very obviously a little better in this game compared to the NES version because the screen is smaller, so it has less travel time and is actually able to hit enemies better. Goodbye. But it's still nowhere near good. With one glaring exception, because, spoilers, it is actually very good at one of the final stretches in the game, but we're not getting there until later, and so far it is really best served for taking out small enemies, and not this guy, for example. These got upgraded quite a bit in comparison to the NES version, with far more resistances against some special weapons, and their bottom part now has 2 hit points, meaning that it gets taken out quickly by special weapons, which means that the top part can then immediately attack you. Top part still has 3 HP. It also no longer gets instantly killed by napalm bombs, for example, making them actual threats. The one thing that compounds that is that they are usually placed in a way where they can only attack you if you're stupid and hit the head. Don't hit the head first, which balances out pretty nicely in my opinion. But you can actually ignore a lot of enemies in this level, not this one, however, because we want to get a little prize here. W, which is probably the hardest of the 4 to get, and still not really hard, because you can even get it from the other screen with the ring boomerang, and you won't be able to miss it because you can see it being there, which is actually a pretty nice design in my opinion. I love it when the stage just wraps around itself like this. Cannot ignore this Joe, but Beat, as I have shown off by now, is very good in dealing with them, and is actually very nicely programmed in that it doesn't take a lot of weapon energy, and if it hits something it cannot destroy, like the crystal itself for some reason, it does not take off weapon energy at all, which is really nice. Speaking of weapon energy, a little thing here, it glitches upwards, which also serves to aid me, of course. Little ditch here in the ground, I kind of wondered about it until I realized it's there to make the floor sweeper not go too far to the right, making the jump down easier. This guy here can easily trip you up and send you into the spikes below and or the bottomless pit if you're not careful. The Buster Shot is actually best at taking it out. Get a path split here, which is part of the reason for why this video is so long, but it is a very long level regardless. I found out in editing that it flows better if I take the top one first, which is why I'm taking it now. And again, in patience, not a good thing in this level. Now, the crystal shoots are back, which would be a problem, like jumps like these two, because they're pretty tough to make and you can screw up, as said, easily on these. Except for 2 things. First of all, we now have a very good weapon to deal with them, which is of course Flash Stopper, making them an absolute non-issue. It's not perfect, however, because we cannot take out Crystal Joes even though time is stopped and we really should be able to, but we get Napalm Bomb for this where they one hits, which is great. But on the other hand, the falling of them is now completely regular. There are no random pauses and or quicker shots fired like in the NES version, which infuriated me to no end in that game, meaning that this is a nice telegraph, by the way. If you follow the health, then you will not fall into the spikes. Meaning that it is actually very easily dealable with now. These platforms here are a little bit more often in the game than once, and in comparison to Mega Man 3's Shadow Man platforms, which also were in Tertium and really assholish, goodbye, are far better because you can actually wait around a little without falling into them immediately. So, other path. Speaking of waiting around a little, you have to wait here, and not immediately grab the weapon energy, because if you do, you're screwed. You cannot get from here to the platform without dying in the spikes. You might be able to get by with tanking a little damage, but it's not advisable. Again, patience, by the way. And it is a nasty little trap, but something that is completely and utterly avoidable by just paying a little attention. Again, Flash Stopper is really good in avoiding these things, and in this path we can actually completely ignore the crystal gems too, which is nice. You might have noticed that the room was again copy-pasted from a room on the other path, which makes it 2 times better, because you might not have noticed it until quite late, because the different enemy and platform setup makes it quite distinct in my opinion, and also because it is on 2 separate paths, it really is not noticeable at all if you're just playing through the game. Something I said again and again, I really do not begrudge them for doing. So the first time the ball guys show a little teeth, but we have plenty of weapons to take them out, even with their increased resistances is not a problem. A problem are the ladder physics, but eh. This is one of my favorite sections in this level. You have to book it here because everything is collapsing and/or stamping together at the end, which is a new gimmick for this level, and I think it fits quite well, because after the very slow beginning where you had to outweight the crystals, you now really have to hurry. And I quite like it, because upping the pace is always good in my books, especially in the series which has the slide and therefore wants to be an action series anyway. And it is woefully underused in most of the games, but Quantum of course does it far better than it has ever been made. Which is going to come into play even later in this here, for example, because now we have to do the same thing again with a twist, because a very nasty trap here. You might want to hurry up even more, but nope, you have to outweight this one and then go on. Sadly enough, the best of the Crusher segments is the first, and it is even on the optional bottom path, but details. So this is the last of them, and it is sadly more or less not really a threat. You might not even notice it that they're going down behind you, which I certainly didn't until this very recording, to be quite honest. But it's a thought that counts, and I do think that it is a very nice gimmick to have, especially in this stage, which so far had only really annoying gimmicks. This is, by the way, not the best way to deal with the bottom sweeper, which is placed rather nastily, but at least the spike drop at the very end in front of the boss door is not an asshole surprise like it was in Stone Man, so I don't mind. The mistake is also not going to cost me, because contrary to the NES version, Crystal Man is actually stupidly easy in this. This is due to 2 facts. First of all, the reduced health bar, means that he dies far quicker now, and his strategy has always been more or less death by 1,000 shots, which means that now that he has less health to work with in comparison to yours, it is not really a problem. Also, as you might have noticed, his bullets cost a tremendous amount of lag, which makes them really easy to dodge. It's built-in slowdown, which people use to cheat all the time, and I can do it with impunity because, well, that's just the way it is. It's kind of sad, but it's not really something I'm going to cry about. Crystal Eye is still aggressively useless. I do quite like the shot they have here with the little triangle it forms, but yes, apart from it not being a crystal, because crystals are never round, they have to have facets, it is still, even on the reduced screen size, far too rarely going to come into play. I'm going to find out a little use for it next time. For now, thank you very much for your attention.